Most of the time, when a relationship ends with an avoidant, it is because the avoidant has discarded the other partner and ended the relationship. However, sometimes the anxious or secure person that's feeling anxious can be the one to actually end the relationship with the avoidant. This is generally when the partner's needs are not being met by the avoidant. When the lack of emotional availability, when the lack of emotional intimacy really hits the breaking point for the more anxious person. Anxious people long for emotional connection. Avoidance, well, they fear it. Now, both fear abandonment. That is the ultimate root fear, but that fear manifests itself differently between an anxious person and an avoidant. Anxious people tend to be people pleasers. They tend to feel like they need to earn the love from a partner, which can keep them holding on to a relationship with somebody who is emotionally distant and not hold boundaries, because the anxious person will feel guilty or selfish for holding the boundary. Chances are, the anxious partner that left the avoidant is going to feel very guilty and very shameful and feeling like a bad person for leaving the avoidant. But understand, if you held a boundary and you told this person that your emotional needs are not being met and you enforced your boundary, you're not being selfish, because your needs, your wants, your feelings in the relationship matter. It's not just a one-way street. You shouldn't be the only one giving emotional energy while the avoidant just takes, and gives you nothing but breadcrumbs in return. If you held your boundary, pat yourself on the back, because you did something that's incredibly difficult to do, especially for a person that leans anxious. Even securely attached people can struggle to hold boundaries when they find themselves in a relationship with an avoidant. The intermittent reinforcement from the avoidant, when they give you a little bit of attention and breadcrumbs here and there, can be very addicting in the same way that intermittent attention from a narcissist can be addicting. It can be very difficult to walk away. But if you reach the point where you understood that your needs were not being met and this relationship was causing you far more anxiety than it was any kind of benefit, love, or happiness, and you made the decision to pull the trigger, you were looking out for your own best interests. You were actually doing what is healthy for you, because you are sending yourself the message that your wants, your needs, your feelings do in fact matter. And if you don't, and if you allow this person to continue to give you nothing but leftover scraps, you're sending yourself the message that your feelings, your wants, your needs don't matter. And that actually pushes you further into insecurity. But remind yourself, you're not selfish for standing up for your needs. And you do deserve someone that loves you the same way that you love them, that gives that unconditional love and commitment the way that you give to others. You shouldn't have to just settle for somebody who is emotionally unavailable, that only gives you breadcrumbs. And that guilt of leaving the avoidant can make you feel like you have to reach out and fix it and rekindle the relationship. But if the avoidant hasn't done the work, it's going to be the same result, and an emotionally distant partner that just is not emotionally present in the relationship. It isn't going to change unless they do the deep work, which requires self-reflection and usually therapy. If they're not doing that, the situation's not going to change, because you can't change this person. You can only work on yourself. Take this as an opportunity to learn and focus on yourself and become a healthier version of yourself. Learn to become more secure. But the very fact that you stood up for your emotional needs is a big step towards becoming securely attached. So don't feel guilty for doing it. Don't feel guilty at all. Your boundaries are important. Your wants and needs are important. Your feelings, they're important too. So snap out of that people pleaser mode and recognize, if you stood up for your needs, you did yourself a favor.